Neighborhood Planning Assembly. I'm very excited to be here. Thanks everyone for coming. The first thing on our agenda is introductions and announcements. It's just your name, your street if you want, and if you have a short little thing that might be coming up that will announce to everyone, feel free to say that here. So I'll start us off. My name is Sam Doherty. I live on Colonial Square, and I am a member of the planning assembly, or the steering committee rather.
Linda Bowden, Brooks Avenue.
Breck Bowden, Brooks Avenue.
Karen Long, Henry Street. Lisa Lax, Tebow Parkway. Yeah.
Just keep that microphone.
Okay, I'll keep it.
Hi, Nick Hill-Goyle. Very quickly, I'm a sociologist at UVM. Formerly was a senior policy advisor for Senator Sanders. I'm running for state senate in Chittenden Central. Just wanted to introduce myself. We look forward to hearing about some of the issues that really matter to you. I'm running on universal primary care, keeping public dollars in public schools, building affordable housing, and protecting immigrants. And look forward to engaging with you on some of the issues. I'm knocking on doors, and so hope to see you soon.
Okay, say your name again. Your name again, what you're running for.
Nick Hill-Goyle, running for state senate in Chittenden Central. Thank you.
Hi, Eric. Erhard Monka, 60 Grove Street.
That.
Hi, my name is Fareed. I live in Ward 5.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ali Schachter, the East District City Councilor.
I'm Rob Gutman. I live on North Wayne Street and I'm on the NPA Standing Committee.
Greetings, I'm Kelly Perkins. I'm the director of the Office of Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging for the city.
There's a wireless.
Hi, Gary Golden, Clark Provide Massive Parks. You'll hear there. I'm the Ward 1 school commissioner.
I'm Jonathan Chapel-Sokol. I'm on the steering committee of prospecting. And you will see in front of you or at your chair a half a sheet of paper like this. This is one of the things that we agreed upon with the city council concerning. Yeah, microphone's not on.
Jonathan.
It was on.
Oh, I don't know.
It's on now. I'm Jonathan Chapel-Sokol, steering committee. You have it in front of you, a piece of paper. One of the agreements that was made with the city council was that the NPAs, each NPA would submit to the city council issues that they wanted the city council to consult with the NPAs prior to any votes, the city or the city council. So you see in front of you a piece of paper. Please write down the things that you think matter most to the ward, the things that you want to make sure you are a part of the decision making on. What we're going to, and if you don't have a pen, there's a pocket full of pens up there. What we're going to do is compile all these. I think we're going to make a quick survey that's going to go on Front Porch Forum, maybe. And then at the next meeting, we'll consolidate this before the March meeting, and at the March meeting, we will vote on a set of issues that we want to make sure go to the city council. Thank you.
I'm Angie Chapel-Sokol. I live on North Prospect Street.
I'm Carol Livingston. I live on Calarco Court, and I'm on the steering committee as well.
I'm Catherine Berman, and I live on North Street.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kevin Bloom, and I'm a musician, and I live on Riverside Avenue, and I'm running for the sheriff of Chittenden County, and I'm running on ending child eviction in our community, protecting immigrants. And I'm actually looking into returning to traffic enforcement in our city. That's something that I've been looking into with my campaign the past month. And I still don't have anything to share about that yet, but I'll be back next month to let you all know what I found out about that.
Charlie Williams, I live on Brooks Ave.
Julie Springer, I live on Wilson Street.
Mark Demers, I live on Loomis Street, currently boiling water.
Yeah.
That's where I live.
Exactly. Richard Hilliard, Pine Grove Court. Rob Fitzgerald, 17 Prospect Hill.
All right, everyone get a chance to make themselves known? Oh, yeah, folks online, Tom, Sophie.
Hi, if you can hear me, I'm Tom Darenthal from Nash Place.
Sophie? Well, we can move on. Next, we're gonna move into Speak Out, and this is a time for anyone to raise an issue about really anything going on in Ward 1, have a few minutes to talk about it. So does anyone have anything for Speak Out?
Hi. So thank you, Jonathan, for passing this out. I am very disappointed in our city council for not letting us vote on the apartheid-free community, especially since 4 or 5 NPAs voted to put that on the ballot. And I am also disappointed that we aren't allowed to vote on the tax fairness proposal that has been being worked on, my understanding, since the last reappraisal, which I personally think the reappraisal was not done fairly. My husband, some neighbors did a lot of research and comparisons of different neighborhoods. Simple neighborhood like Henry Street, we got hit really hard. Whereas Summit Street, some of the nicer, South Prospect, some of the usually more expensive neighborhoods actually were spared the high increase. So anyway, I think that we should at least get to vote. I feel like that's our right. And I see that Fareed is here, and I'm hoping that he's going to talk about Proposition 0. If it's still called that, it would be, instead of that, if you follow the rules and you get the signatures, whatever people would like on the ballot will get put on the ballot by the city council. It's not up to them to judge if it's worthy or not. So anyway, I hope that that does pass, and I am just disappointed. I'm disappointed in national government, and now I'm feeling really sad about our local government. So anyway, thank you.
Anyone else have something for Speak Out? Earhart.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, just echoing what you just said. I was on a kind of an ad hoc policy group that originally made that proposal to the mayor and city councilors, and it was very disappointing given the hits that so many people took and on the property tax reappraisal, and that provision that got voted down by the Democratic majority on the city council. I think it's just really unfortunate that we don't have a chance to at least in an advisory capacity, because it wasn't going to be a binding vote, to get that on the ballot and sort of take the temperature of the city of residents on that. I wasn't actually going to speak to that. I was just going to speak as a Burlington Planning Commissioner. I think there's 2 of us from Ward 1. Alex Friend over on excuse me, on Henry Street is my fellow Ward 1 commissioner. Just wanted to let folks know that probably for at least the next 6 months, we're going to be working, we're starting work on the city's new comprehensive development plan. This is like a master plan, so-called, for the city and its future development over the next, well, these are 8-year plans, but it's looking at about a 20-year horizon. It's going to address not just development, as in real estate development, but a whole number of issues from economic development to parks and recreation, transportation, housing, infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. So just to let folks know, we meet on the second and fourth Tuesday of the month. We have a few folks that follow the commission on a very regular basis. So I would just encourage folks to tune into the Burlington Planning Commission meetings. You don't have to come down to City Hall for those. You can tune in online. The other major issue, and that's going to preoccupy us probably for the next year or so. It needs to be approved by the end of the year and early next year by the City Council ultimately. The other major issue that we're going to be dealing with is taking a look at inclusionary zoning, which has been, one of the, for folks who are not familiar with it, it was enacted in the late 80s, early 90s. Actually was one of the folks who helped write it back when I was on the City Council. And it basically requires any real estate development of a certain size to have at least 15% of the units affordable to working families. So revising that and kind of holding, there's some interesting ideas on reforming it, but bottom line is I want to make sure that it remains in place so that when we do have real estate development, at least a percentage of it remains affordable to working families.
I don't have a question, but I have a request for a future meeting. I know our agenda is packed here. I'm painfully aware that our property tax assessment has gone up, but don't know, and I know many of the factors for why that's the case, but why there should be unfair factors is something that I'd like to hear more about. And so if we could have a future discussion about that, I would appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Sharon Busher, and I'm one of the Planning Commission faithful followers. And actually, I'm obsessed, but anyways, everyone in this room knows this. I'm a political junkie. I can't get it out of my system. So, and I'm not ashamed either. I just own it. But what I did ask the planning department to do was to put out as an attachment the schedule that Earhart referenced regarding the Planning Commission and the inclusionary zoning dates and the municipal development plan dates. And I wanted to just let you know that that is, if you go online and go under city meetings, you can see that attachment and you can plan ahead if you want to speak or get informed. When it actually comes to the city council, I think the public feels they have an opportunity, and they do, to weigh in. But the die is mainly cast at that point. Things have been set, not in stone, but they're set and they're ready to be acted upon. So if you want to understand what is being proposed, if you want to have a say, to say, yes, keep going in that way, or please consider this, you need to get involved earlier and make your opinion known. There's no right or wrong. It's very important. It's our municipal plan, and it's our city that needs to create affordable housing, and inclusionary zoning is key to creating that affordable housing. I believe that many of us hear developers say, and others say, if we have more housing, it will become affordable. That is a misnomer. You have to plan and create affordable housing. So I just wanted you to know to look at that schedule. And the last thing I want to say about that is that there is a plan for efficiency to have the Planning Commission and the Ordinance Committee of the City Council work on inclusionary zoning together. Now, that works for them, but and it does work overall, but it does oftentimes shorten the amount of time that the public has to weigh in. Normally, it would go through planning and then have a long process in the city council ordinance committee. That process may be, I'm not saying it will be, but may be shortened because of this combined effort. And so I once again want people to know that and have a chance to educate themselves and weigh in on it. These are important decisions. This is going to be what our future community is going to look like. And I think that for those of us who have been here a while or plan to stay a while, young or old, I want all of our voices to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, me tap my. Okay, so just hold it a little closer. Thank you.
Got it. I'm gonna come from behind the pole here. Milo Grant, I live in Ward 2 and I serve as the chair of the Public Safety Committee. And I just wanted to give you a reminder that on January 26th, we had a Public Safety Committee meeting that I think is very, very important. At each meeting, we do get data from the fire and police departments. But as you will hear tonight during the budget presentation, one of the items that you'll be asked to vote on is the increase in the public safety tax, which would be directly directed to the police and fire departments. Why I think this meeting is so important is that in the past over politics, you heard the term, what was the term? Bickering. When we were talking about the need for correct data, we were talking about the need for the public to understand what the actual numbers are with regards to how our community's safety resources are being used. This is a meeting where you hear directly from the department's leadership. Chief Burke, you hear from the fire department, you hear also from Battalion Chief Marshall McCrumbie, who is in charge of EMS team. So you hear what they've been working on, what they've been seeing, and you see the numbers, you see the number of incidents. We've had increase in incidents, we've had increase in the number of patrols. That is really crucial information to make an informed vote, and I encourage all of you to watch that meeting. Even if you can't watch the meeting, their PowerPoints with all the data are attached. You get to that by going to the City of Burlington's website, clicking on agenda. That'll take you to a calendar, click on January 26th, and then the Public Safety Committee meeting, you'll be able to watch it and see the attachments. Thank you so much for listening.
I'm back here.
This is a good one. Is that a good one? Yeah. It's gotta be worth it, right? This is actually an announcement. If Dave Colley were here, he would make the announcement, but Winterlude is coming up again. It was postponed last weekend. I wasn't here, but I'm sure you all know why it was canceled last weekend. And they weren't able to reschedule it for this coming weekend because there were so many things to juggle, but the following weekend, the 20th and 21st, I think, Friday afternoon, late afternoon into the evening, there's some activities, and then Saturday, and that's Parks and Rec brings all their a lot of their equipment. So we have sleds, and we have cross-country skis, and we have snowshoes, and so people, and particularly families, get a chance to try all that stuff for free, and it's a great place to be. So think about it. It's certainly been in Front Porch Forum, and we can try and get the specifics to you again and again. Thank you.
This is not at all political. I just want to note that if you want a gluten-free cookie, those cookies are gluten-free. Okay, they're full of butter and sugar and eggs and all the other stuff, but no gluten.
They're delicious.
Sorry, just a quick follow-up on Sharon's comment. So the first planning commission meeting on inclusionary zoning, the kind of kickoff is going to be March 24th. And the other thing I forgot to say before was on the comprehensive plan, there will be an extensive public outreach effort. We just met with the consultants that the city hired for the first time last night as a commission. They're in town this week studying up on Burlington, learning more about Burlington, and also helping our staff develop an extensive engagement, public engagement plan. And one of the things I'll certainly advocate for is that they specifically come to our NPA as well as the other NPAs to make sure that there's plenty of input through the NPA system.
Hi, everyone. My name is Fareed. Thank you for having me here tonight. I brought some fruit salad, which is also gluten-free. I'm here speaking on behalf of Proposition Zero, which is the campaign to bring direct democracy to Burlington. Burlington's municipal charter, actually, we feel like it's missing a section, which is found in other municipalities' charter documents, and that is a power of the people section. So we are looking to amend our municipal charter to include this section of powers of the people, which we want to put on the ballot for the November election. Basically, it sets up the mechanism for voters to put ballot questions. And establishes 3 forms of direct democracy, which is the advisory question, a non-binding public question, and then 2 forms of binding items, which is one is initiative, which is basically like a proposal to enact ordinance, and the other form is a referendum, which is basically proposing a repeal of something that city council has passed. You could probably think a few decisions that could use something like that, and in addition to providing checks and balances, we believe this will also help us hold our public officials accountable and stimulate innovation, and that Burlington has a proud history of. And it will bring our charter in line with the rest of Vermont municipalities. As you probably may know, like town hall style democracy and grassroots decision making is a noble and cherished tradition in Vermont. So we want to bring that to Burlington. And the first step is to get this on the November ballot. And for that, we need about 2,000 signatures. So I will be passing this around. There is the full language of the amendment that's being proposed to the charter. And we are also asking for volunteers and to get to the town meeting day. The reason for that is usually that's the best time to meet voters. So if you are available on town meeting day and you support direct democracy, you can sign up for a 2-hour shift at the polling station. And we're hoping to get to 2,000 signatures either on town meeting day or on the primary in later in October. But the hope is to get this on the November ballot and have it passed and then be on the legislature for approval by around this time next year. Thank you very much.
All right, we all set for
Can I just ask a question? Is there a website with more information?
Proposition0.org.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you everyone for Speakout. Next up on our agenda is city council update. So I want to invite our councilors, Ali, and I don't see Carter. Maybe he's online or maybe he's not here.
He had a work emergency.
He had a work emergency, so it's just gonna be Ali tonight, but thank you, Ali. You have about 15 minutes.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Allie.
Nice to see you all. I came with my little list of things going on, and I want to make sure to save time for questions. The first is an important announcement, which is that on Monday, we designated the second Wednesday of every February, which is today, as Crossing Guard Appreciation Day. So I want to thank our amazing crossing guards. I know we have at least one in this room who keep our kids safe and help them get to school every day, and are our hometown heroes. So that felt really exciting and a real feel-good moment for the council, which we need because we have so many heavy things facing us right now. So I want to give a quick kind of like, I'm going to fly through a couple of budget and ballot things because I know we have Dr. Perkins and CAO Shad here today, as well as our school commissioners to bring us a little deeper into what to expect on the ballot. But the first is that I think, as you all know, and I think as I said at our last NPA, we are projecting a $10 to $12 million budget gap again this year. And so we're really hard at work, and you're going to get a great presentation tonight. I know because I've seen it. And it is very informative about sort of why, and also what we're exploring to help close that gap for this fiscal year. And then there's going to be 4 ballot questions that I'm just going to kind of fly through because you're going to get a lot more information, but this is what you should expect on your ballot. So we are bringing a 5-cent police and fire tax to voters this town meeting day. That would lead, if passed, that would be about I think it's like a 9.4% increase on the municipal tax side of your property tax bill, which is 1/3 of your property tax bill. About 2/3 of your property tax bill is schools, and about 1/3 is municipal. So this would be a not insignificant, but also I think it amounts to about a 3% overall on your property tax bill increase to fund our police and fire, and it would help us close this budget gap by about $3 million. So I think it's worth reading more about. Obviously, police and fire are absolutely critical services for the city. We don't have any inflators built into our property tax ordinances, maybe. I don't know exactly where that all lives, but so they don't increase with inflation. So it tends to mean that every few years we're having to kind of bring the potential for municipal property tax increases to voters. So that's one thing to be watching for. We are also going to have a question about enshrining the Office of Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging into the city charter. Dr. Perkins, the director of our REIB office, is here tonight to share more about that. I think that's I'm happy to speak about where I stand on that. I think it's a really important step for our city, and the REIB office is doing amazing work. We are going to have the school budget, which I'm sure you'll hear more about tonight as well. And then a question about annual compensation for school board members, which really affords them parity with a lot of our other boards and commissions in the city and across the state. So more on that, and also the North Avenue News, which I think might be now called the Burlington Community News or something like that. It's under new ownership. I got it in my mailbox today. I did the counselor's corner, and I really walked through the 4 ballot questions. So feel free to take a read there, and I'm happy to answer any questions always. We have a meeting coming up next Tuesday for City Council, where you can expect, I believe, to see a resolution regarding the status of ICE operations in our city and where we stand on them. The mayor, the city council, our police and fire departments, our school district, state leaders, we've all been working really closely together to make sure that we are prepared, as we know that ICE is never far and making real impact on many, many communities here in Vermont and across the country. So there is a new website, a new city website called the Status of ICE Operations. You can Google it very easily. You can even just Burlington, Vermont ICE or ICE Operations, and it'll come up where we're giving information in real time on what to do and what we're seeing in the community. As far as I'm hearing right now, we're not seeing a surge in ICE activity, but we want to be prepared and aware and have all the pieces in place should that happen. And then we are bringing forward a resolution, like I said, next Tuesday, making it clear where we stand as a city council and as a city, that we formally oppose ICE activities in Burlington and the state, and that we ask our federal and state officials to take all necessary steps to protect state sovereignty and the safety of all Burlington residents, that we strongly object to the use of any facility within the city or state for ICE operations. I'm shortening these in the interest of time, but that we urge the governor, the legislature, the attorney general, state and local law enforcement to vigorously enforce state statutes and constitutional protections. That we urge the legislature to continue pursuing legislation to hold ICE and federal agents accountable. That we fully support the mayor's initiative to convene stakeholders and transparently prepare for the possibility of expanded ICE operations in Burlington. and that we mourn the deaths and honor all who have been killed, injured, or harmed by ICE enforcement or custody. So I think it's a really important message that we're sending. I expect it again to be on the agenda next Tuesday. And I think it, as far as I know, has our full support. So that's happening, and I do encourage you to keep an eye on that website and Front Porch Forum and sign up for the mayor's newsletter and all the ways that we're trying to keep everyone updated. And then the last thing is I wanted to, there's a lot happening. There's a lot I could speak to, but we do take really seriously this tax fairness advisory question that had been brought forward as a potential for this year's town meeting day ballot. For several reasons, the city council opted, it was a non-binding advisory question as presented, and a lot of people, it hadn't gone through a public process. The tax fairness advisory group met over the course of the last year. They did really good work. They brought a report forward to the council in October. It went to the charter committee where the mayor's administration and the charter committee sent a non-binding advisory question to council for consideration on the town meeting day ballot. Ultimately, the way it was presented was giving a universal $30,000 homestead exemption to all primary homesteads. So that means anyone who's living in their primary place of residence would see their property tax, their assessed property value go down by $30,000. And on the flip side, I can't remember the exact amount, but it was about $150 million worth of property tax value would be moved to commercial and non-homestead properties, many of which are rentals or potentially like small businesses. So there was concern that we wanted to dig a little deeper to really understand the impact. Is sort of that transfer from homestead to non-homestead correct? Could we, be looking within the homestead bracket of like maybe an exemption for the lower value homes and maybe adding that, moving some of that value to the higher value homes? Is there ways to take income sensitivity into account? There was a lot of questions, and knowing that this was non-binding, we still are working really diligently to figure out if there's what the path can be to bring a binding tax fairness question to voters by November or next March, which would have been the same timeline no matter what. And I'm introducing a resolution to create an ad hoc tax fairness council committee with a public process to bring you all into these conversations and figure out what can we do. This report was very rich. Where can we go from here? What do we want to explore and still hopefully be on the same timeline for a binding tax fairness effort? So just know that is very much, we care. We know the affordability crisis and trying to figure out sort of what's the best way to move forward. That there was just a very quick timeline to be bringing a proposal when I think there were really valid questions and concerns. So I will open it up for questions.
We've got time for maybe 2 questions. Jonathan.
Using our time. Thank you, Ellie, and thank you for that. Just a quick follow-up for the perplexed. There are a ton of things, at least from my perception, there's a ton of things that city council does that ends up being a charter change that goes on a ballot that we vote on as the residents, right? This was a little different in the sense that it was an advisory question. But the fact that it wasn't put on the ballot in any way constrain the city council from working on this?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so.
The advisory question would have essentially said, yes, we want you to explore this further.
And if it had said no, what would have happened? If the public voted against this, what would have happened?
I think that would have been a statement to council that we shouldn't explore it further.
Okay, thank you.
And we are continuing to explore it further. Yeah.
All right, no other questions.
Thanks, everyone.
Next up, we have our school commission update with Matt and Gary. If you guys want to come up, you have 10 minutes.
All right, hello, everyone. While Gary's making way up here, I guess we'll just dive right into our budget. Budgetary question. Actually, Jared, do you want to take it? We usually have the whole. No, cool. So there'll be 2 questions related to the school board for the school district on the March 3rd ballot. The first is to vote for a budgetary increase. I think the first and foremost important thing to note is that the entire text of the budget question has nothing to do with what your tax increase will be. So just know it's a school budget question, and you could ignore all of the text that's associated with that question. The text on the ballot is dictated by statute, and there is no way to make it more informative to voters. But the long short of it is that the estimated the school district budget has increased due to salary increases, benefits packages, and we worked with this, as I mentioned in our last meeting, we worked with the superintendent to really try to figure out how it is that we could curtail the increases and the impact that would have on voters. The ultimate increase is that, as Ali suggested, your property tax bill is divided into a municipal side and a school budget side. The school budget side is expected to increase by 4.7%. That increase is after it factors in that the legislature is planning to buy down contribute $75 million to the education fund, which would reduce tax rates. So the 4.7 rate is a reduced tax rate. And comments made by the governor, he has suggested that he might increase the amount that he will contribute to the education fund from the general fund to further reduce that tax rate. And then there also seems to be a lot of discussion from other departments that are experiencing budget shortfalls. And there seems to be rescue funds elsewhere from the legislature to fill those gaps. So it's unclear how much money will actually be able to make it over to the education fund. But the governor's kind of sticking with a $75 million number for now. So we anticipate that it would be a 4.7 increase on the school budget side of your taxes. The other component, and I should say too, that we are, the other impact, the other item that will be on the ballot is to provide a small stipend of $2,000 per school board member for each calendar year that they are serving on the board. This is consistent with the small stipend that's available to city councilors for serving on the city council. The decision to put this stipend was before my time, but I will say that as a parent of two children, it can be challenging to coordinate childcare needs, to make sure that you have your family can have what it needs so that you can go off and do the school board meetings once a month. And so the goal of this modest stipend is to try to help offset that cost. I think that it's a good way to help sort of increase equity and access to people being on the school board. And as that we have a number of school board seats open up around town, it is a factor in sort of trying to recruit parents and other individuals who are active in our school district by saying that there is this stipend available. So those are the two items on our ballot that we'll be asked to vote on. Turn over to Gary.
Full disclosure, I voted no on the stipend, but what other South Burlington, particularly many of their commissioners, choose not to accept it, I will accept it, but use it for a YMCA program that helps our global majority students with employment. So I kind of a win-win. Just want to give you an update on the State House a little bit, and I'll try to be positive. I think I've been kicked off Front Porch Forum for my last writing. I don't even receive it now. It's very strange. I didn't think it was that acerbic, but maybe it was. I just realized it today because we've been traveling. So I talked with Martine today, who's a school board member and a state senator who presented a couple of months ago. And her feeling is that the Senate is really not, the committee is not really addressing much of the educational issue at the moment, the redistricting. I asked her, are they at least using the task force recommendations? And she said, not really talking about much. I was hoping Troy would be here to kind of fill us in on what he's hearing at the House level, but currently Representative Conlon, who's the chair of the committee, a Democrat from Cornwall, has put together a starting point proposal of going from our 177 districts to 27, based around the tech center model that was presented last year. A little more of that. So The state is divided up somewhat by districts who have a relationship with certain tech centers. So pretty much the entirety of Chittenden County is a shared model where we have two tech centers, one in Essex and then one locally. Where some of like Essex, Caledonia, the Northeast Kingdom has two centers. One is at St. J Academy, and then which is the far south, and then Canaan, which is right up against the Canadian border, kind of the northeast corner of the state. So otherwise, it's pretty much one tech center serves the local county. And so there is some thought that that's not a bad starting place. It's certainly, you're already sharing resources. Let's talk about how to share more resources. And that's sort of the model that the task force came up with, of more cooperative, non-required cooperation. And that has some numbers of savings where particularly the original proposal for 5 districts had no savings other than pretty much contracting Chittenden into one super district where a couple of superintendent's positions would be eliminated, at least in the short term. That was the only savings. So with that said, that's sort of where things are at the state level. Questions? About the budget or anything? John.
Only because the room was one. I just wanted to let everybody know that we did send the letter supporting the task force's recommendations to all of our legislators, which includes the legislative leadership, to the state education leadership, and to the city council. We got acknowledgments from Keisha and Carol Odie. So the rest of them may have been read.
Anyone else? All right. Okay.
I don't know where I'd heard this, but that we need to like compliment, that the school board has done a great job on the budget. And then especially since we're building a new high school. I've just heard good things about you guys, just so you know, but I don't remember if it's the city council or meeting or what, but thank you for doing that. And it is exciting. We'll have a new school.
Yeah. It will be the newest building in Vermont and definitely the newest high school in Vermont for probably quite some time.
Yeah.
And we're kind of reaping the benefit of that, of many of the building projects that we've had. Part of why the budget is kind of leveling out is we're not paying as much rent as we have been. And we're kind of seeing the end of the rental at Macy's, which is up to about 2.3 million a year, something like that. We're gonna go there. So, but we're not paying rent for the tech centers anymore. They are now pretty much located either in a school, like programs there's one program for education that's at Evans Elementary. Many of them, the more technical programs, have now settled in at the hangar at the airport, which is an amazing facility. It's an amazing set of programs there. They have a helicopter. Well, they started out with a helicopter. Now they have something like 10 or 12 planes that they take apart and put back together, and they're getting their mainframe. They're graduating with like 5 or 10 different certifications, hired almost from graduation, if not earlier. They're at the airport, either Beta, National Guard, one of the air service companies. So it's just an amazing set of programs there. So that's, yes, there are.
I was just wondering if you guys could comment a little bit on the district's advocacy or lobbying efforts around education reform at the State House. I remember that our district had some common cause with some of the rural districts last year. And I'm just wondering if you're working with them again, or if things have sort of, different districts have split in different ways. Yeah, just if you could talk about that a little.
The district has a person who is down in Montpelier to help out, sort of an advocate and advance the district's position on the redistricting plan. And we are, so I think we're sort of in line. I don't know if I can't think of many school districts around the state that are enthusiastic or in favor of the currently proposed plans. So we're sort of in lockstep with them on advocating for a different outcome.
The alliance, though, does still continue, and our lobbyist is, and some of our actual board members are part of that alliance of. So just a reminder, Act 117, I believe. 73, thank you. Too many numbers. Weighs the cost of students based on particularly 3 criteria. Are they English language learners, or English learners now, this is the correct term, special ed, and poverty? And we're all 3. And so we received, that was probably the reason last year's budget was also as low as it was that offset from the weighted students. That whole question is still now up in the air because of the legislation done during the reconciliation process. Don't get me started. So the alliance is still working, is still being, there's pushback from some of the gold towns particularly, who they have some of those 3 issues, but not to the degree that we do. What we're fighting now is that a lot of districts use their COVID money for staffing, and they don't want to fire their staff. So they have, to some degree, inflated budgets because of that. We chose to do curricula and buildings to use our money. And so it was, and that was modeling at IAA. One building was 100 years old, part of the building, another was 60. And in dire need, now we have geothermal. How cool is that? So that's, and we, our reading curriculum was a purchase from that COVID money as well. So that's really the fight now, is between those 2 groups. But like I said, there doesn't seem to be any movement on anything around education at the moment, which is really surprising.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably our time. You do about 10 or 15?
It's 15, so you got
Okay.
4 more minutes, but we can also
Move along.
we can also get ahead.
Any other?
Can I follow up with a further question? So did you guys do any kind of analysis under Act 73? If Burlington became a member of a larger district with fewer students that qualify for those 3 criteria, like what the impact would be, even though the larger district, for Burlington and Winooski, which have very diverse populations with large percentages of English learners, what happens to the boost that Burlington and Winooski get through those formulas if we're like mixed in with less diverse districts like CVU, Mount Mansfield, et cetera?
I don't believe that there was a thorough analysis, but there is an answer, which is that I believe under Act 73, most of that budgeting formula would get thrown out. So it's a mystery as to how the new district that would be configured would fit into the fix. So the modeling would be an exercise in futility because it wouldn't apply.
But risky.
Yeah.
But I think the only union I could foresee would be ours and Winooski. Otherwise, you're talking about, I think I tried to do the numbers, 4 of the largest 7 districts in the state are our neighbors, we and our neighbors. So who are you going to join to do an 8,000 student, 7,000 student school district? There's no logic to that when most of even those configurations around the tech centers range from 3,000 to 6,000 or 7,000 students. And then we're 28,000 for our combined area. So they're really, I don't think they're really looking at many models to really, it'll be Foundation Plus is the best that Senator Beck, who's sort of was leading the charge last year, have come up with. Real quick.
It's not clear that there really is a foundation.
No, okay.
They're gonna use that. Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, there's no movement, even though, Senator Baumgartz is the
But we
chair of the
went
committee.
to court against that years ago, so.
We did. Yes, ma'am. Okay, appreciate it.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt and Gary. Next, we have a presentation on our town meeting day ballot items by CEO Shad and Dr. Perkins from REIB.
Oh, I was. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. I am Catherine Schad, joined by my colleague, Dr. Perkins, and you have heard about 2 of the 4 items that are going to appear on your ballot. If you have not gotten your ballot yet, you're not alone, but I did see them being stuffed in the city clerk's office yesterday, and so they're going out, and you should get them early next week. So I'm going to start by talking about the fun topic of increasing your property taxes, something everyone always loves for me to talk about. I'm expecting good questions because I see that you have lots of them. And then I will turn it over to Kelly here and she will talk about REIB. So moving right into it, as you heard from Councilor Schachter, we are unfortunately expecting at this point in the budgeting process another $10 to $12 million budget gap. Our budget for last year was about $107 million. So that's about 10% of our general fund budget. We are very much still in the process of going through all of our detailed projections. And so you can see there's a bit more information here, but everything that we have done in terms of fleshing out more details has been in line with expectations. You can see on the next slide that we always start with personnel. Personnel is by far the largest expense for the city. We start with this current year's budget. We're not projecting to add new staff with the exception of 2 new firefighters, which were negotiated in the recent new contract with the Burlington Firefighters Association. And then we add the required cost of living adjustments. And you can see here that is 7% for next year for fire, 4.75% for police. The rest of our staff are either non-union staff or they are governed by the AFSCME union, and we are just about to start negotiations with AFSCME. So I don't know what the COLA will be negotiated for next year, so we're using an estimate. We have in the past given our non-union employees the same increase as our AFSCME employees. And so we're using that assumption for this year as well. You can see here some of the additional costs include healthcare and retirement costs. Healthcare, I'm sure you've heard about because that has also been in the news around the country and also in Vermont. Our healthcare costs have been going up extraordinarily fast. The city has experienced that. We're self-insured, so we have a little bit of control over
how we can control costs. Right now, we are estimating that the healthcare budget for the city will go up by 10% next year. Moving beyond personnel, on the next slide, we can see the operating costs. For the most part, we try and hold those as level as we can. You will see here that at this tentative stage, we are including 9 new vehicles in next year's budget. And that is because since 2013, the city has been constrained in replacing vehicles because we have been trying to be careful with the budget. But at this point, our fleet committee has let us know that of those 9 new vehicles, 6 are for police and fire, and all 9 are on the urgent, dire, must replace list. You know, these are, if you go down to 645 Pine, one of the things that happens there is a big garage and our fleet maintenance. And those employees are spending much more time than they used to trying to repair and keep vehicles on the road, including ambulances, police cars, even fire trucks. And so at some point, you realize, just like with your own vehicle, like you can keep putting money into it, but when is it sort of a sunk cost? And we've made that determination for these vehicles. Why a structural budget gap? That is a longer conversation that you could invite me back for, or you can stay tuned because we're going to be talking about it at Board of Finance. But the very quick answer is our grand list, which provides the basis for property taxes. Property taxes only represent about half of the city's revenue. But those property taxes, as Councillor Schachter mentioned, do not grow with inflation. Expenses do. As you saw, we have to increase our salaries every year for cost of living. We also have to pay increased healthcare costs. So those are going up by, let's say, 4% for COLA or 7%, whatever it is. But if our property taxes are only growing by 1%, you start to see the math doesn't math there. Additionally, in this last bullet, this is the first year that we don't have business personal property tax in the budget. And that is something that was started to be phased out in 2018. So this is a long way coming, but it's $1 million worth of revenue that we had in last year's budget that we don't have in this year's budget that we need to replace. Other factors, unlike the school district, which said they used their ARPA money not on staff costs, the city did use it on some staffing. And so we used it for lots of things, but that is something that we're reckoning with. We have used it for a lot of police and fire salaries over the years. We used the end of it last year, or this current year, of $1.2 million. And as you can see here, there are some additional places such as overly optimistic budgeting that we're looking to correct. That sort of adds to this issue of the ongoing structural budget gap. Here you can see the 98 full-time equivalents that were added by the general fund, not just during COVID. That's over a 10-year period. But as I mentioned, some were added with one-time revenue. And we're looking at what were all of those positions that were added and which ones can we afford to keep? What are the core and essential services that all of us expect? And then what are some of the hard conversations where there's services we all enjoy, but can we afford to keep paying for them? You will see throughout this process this picture of a stool because we're really trying to make sure that We don't lean on any one area too much for how are we going to solve this budget issue. Raising revenue and looking at property taxes is certainly one of the legs of the stool. Right-sizing government and looking at, have we added too many positions? Do we need to take some of them away? Is certainly another. And then this other one, realizing strategic opportunities and how do we grow more revenue, is a third. We won't have time to talk about all of them, but we'll talk about them briefly. The 5-cent increase to police and fire would raise about $3 million of the $10 to $12 million gap we're facing. That number was not picked randomly. As you can see here, that pretty much exactly lines up with the increased compensation that we are offering police and fire. And an interesting thing to note, the current police and fire tax, which is one of the splinter taxes, we talk about the property tax, but in reality, we've already discussed 2/3 of the property tax is for education. The other third is for the city or the municipal side. Within that 1/3 on the municipal side, there's actually about 13 or 14 separate splinter taxes, we call them. There's one for debt, there's one for retirement, there's one for police and fire, there's a tiny one for the library, and it goes on and on. And the budget for police and fire is just over $39 million, but the police and fire tax only raises $6 million. So you again start to see where my math problem comes in. And so that tax is only raising 16% of the cost of those services. And so that is another reason why we are asking for this increase. And we did have a 9-3 vote to place this on the ballot. This is in bold here what it might look like in terms of an increase on the municipal side of your tax bill. Why have we used the random number of $353,000? Because that is what we have for data from the assessor's office of exactly half the number of homes have a property value that is assessed higher than that and half lower than that. Councillor Schachter had a very good memory that the proposed increase is about 9.4% here. That includes the 5-cent proposed increase to police and fire. It also includes the increases that we expect that are required by charter under for the debt and the retirement splinter tax. I have some very good and late breaking news, which is I think that that number is going to go down as of today. That number is at 6.5% instead of 9.4%. I've not actually even had time to tell the mayor. I hope she's not listening. But I will get out new numbers because we just found out today that the retirement tax actually won't need to go up like we had predicted here. So I don't have the math off the top of my head, but that won't be $285 anymore. That will be a bit less, and we could put out some updated slides with that minor bit of good news. And then finishing things up here, there will also be some changes, of course, on this slide, but this gives you sort of the bigger picture of how would we go about filling this entire gap, and how does the police and fire tax fit in? And you can see, you know, this is sort of the 3 legs of the stool. And it is very early. There are some of these things that are already changing. We're updating them on the Board of Finance on them regularly. But I think it's important for you to have an early look at this. And I think that's about it. So I am open for questions. Oh, there's a quick summary here. But I think you know all of that information, so I won't waste time. I'm going to start with Sharon, and I have some of my two favorites who are always at City Council.
Thank you very much, Catherine. As far as splinter taxes, most of those, to my recollection, well, you named some, but there are a number that the citizens of Burlington voted on. And the reason, so you know this better than I, but the general fund tax can be used for anything. So it is a CFO's dream to have that money because you can fill in the holes. Splinter taxes are usually dedicated taxes to a specific use, like the library fund. That came about because we didn't have enough money allocated for books, and people wanted to augment that. I was on the council when that came forward, and the residents voted for that, and those dollars are specific. They were for books, but then it, for texts and all sorts of other things. So I am concerned because I know you to be an incredibly thorough person, I should say. And I am concerned about if indeed there is consideration for using the splinter taxes or sunsetting them, and using the money that's in that pot and move it into a general fund. I wanted to understand if that really is being contemplated, because there's sort of a rumor out there that that is being contemplated. And I'm sure that this has to go through the legal eyeballs. But I wanted to kind of be reassured myself as a voter who voted for a tax like police and fire tax. That's a safety tax. So people wanted that money to go specifically for public safety and for those purposes, and didn't want it to be moved over to plant trees, even though we all want trees, but we didn't want that money. So can you speak at all about the splinter taxes and whether or not those funds are secure for their use, or whether or not there is some consideration about movement?
I am happy to speak to that because I understand this is a small town and there's lots of rumors. There is no legal way for us, even if I wanted to take the money that has been dedicated to the dedicated or splinter taxes. As you said, like using library as an example, or conservation legacy fund, the way that each of those has been written, it is my understanding that each of those dedicated pots of money has their own unique rules and regulations. So we can't speak about them so broadly, but generally speaking, they cannot just be, sort of scooped up and taken into the general fund. I think that there was a little bit of confusion, and perhaps things got blown out of proportion because one of the solutions was looking at dedicated tax balances of leftover money. And even within that, the idea is to continue to use those funds should they exist. And we're still very much in a research frame of mind, but let's again pretend it was the library. If we found that the library had, and I'm just again making it up, $100,000 left over that they didn't know about, it would still all be going towards the dedicated uses. And we would just be saying, is there a way that we could help reduce the draw on the general fund while still putting all of that money towards the collections for the library, all within the same uses that were originally voted on by either the council or the voters.
So thank you. The reason I didn't do this to put you on the spot, but I think that when there are rumors that start, they grow out of proportion quickly. And so I wanted to have some facts here for people so that they can understand what you're looking at, what the restrictions are, and understand what you're doing. I mean, we should all applaud the administration and you for looking at every source of funding to try to bridge this gap, and I do. But thanks for answering that. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think Karen was next.
Thank you. Thank you for that explanation.
Oh, sorry.
It seems so clear that you guys are doing a great job and that I support it. I mean, I think it's great. I did want to ask you, because at the last city council meeting, a gentleman spoke to the council about fire trucks and why we have not so many fire trucks, but, and I've always wondered this too, why when we are sending an ambulance or there's an overdose problem or whatever, why does the fire truck go there also? Because he was speaking to the mayor and the council about not supporting that or considering not supporting that tax because of that. So I think if we, like your explanation you just did was excellent, and things like that, so people know what it's about. Do you know that with a fire truck, what?
I don't, but this is something that has come up before, and I'm sure there's a reason. So let me talk to Chief Curtin.
I imagine it's for the equipment, because, you know, an ambulance will come on the street to get somebody who had an issue, but the fire truck shows up too. But anyway, stuff like that, when it's crystal clear, like your presentation, people have to just, it's life. I mean,
Yes.
Thank you, though.
Yeah, thank you. And let me see what I can find out.
Go ahead, Mr.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll make one comment first, which is I think the mayor is ill-advised to continue to beat the dead horse of the previous administration. I think this is mayor's budget, and this is mayor's business for the last 2 years. I've written budgets for tens of millions and small numbers for 50 years. And there's only 3 reasons why you get budget problems. Either you spend money that you don't have, you project revenue that you don't achieve, or the person who's writing the budget is incompetent. And usually it's a combination of all 3, right? One of the things that I'm very interested to know why we've got a board of finance if we get into a pickle like we seem to have been for the last, let's say 18 months. What strictures of the board of finance placing? We have a city councillor who's not here today, unfortunately, but he is on the board of finance. And whenever I write to him about anything to do with financial matters, I never get a response. But one or two of the things that we should be doing is we should stop discretionary expenses. Don't wait until July the 1st or whenever it is. Stop them now. I'll give you an example. 9 months ago, there was a similar sort of conversation, a series of presentations, and I had written to our city councillors to say stop discretionary expenses now, unless it's signed off by the CAO or the mayor. And the following day, there was a note on Front Porch Forum to warn that there was going to be a bump out construction on Loomis Street. Now, that's exactly what I'm talking about. We want to save every single penny that we possibly can. A bump out on Loomis Street is discretionary expenditure. And I bet we've got that in spades right the way through
certainly through public works, because all that money that you spend goes outside the city, it goes to Ireland or someone. The other thing that I would like to say is that it would be good to hear that we've got an ordinance committee and charters and all the rest of it. But what is your comment if I say to you that we have got laws, ordinances, fees on the books that are just waiting for people to pay the money, and or in the case of traffic, of course, the gentleman over here was talking about earlier, get some traffic enforcement. We're not doing this. There's money authorized for departments to extract, as it were, or realize that we are just not doing. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
There's a lot to unpack there, and I think we could have a interesting discussion about the role of the Board of Finance. But I will say, I think you bring up a very good point about collections, and we had that large solution slide up for only a moment. But I will say, we are actively exploring money that maybe the city is leaving on the table with parking tickets that have not been properly enforced, and a variety of other areas. So stay tuned. I think it is an area where, especially since COVID, there was a period of time where intentionally the city decided to have a bit of a reprieve in certain areas, and then it has taken longer, as it often does in government, to get things back to where they were. And so now there is a lot of effort being put into that, and to make sure that there is consistency across those departments. So I think it's a really good point. I also take your point about discretionary spending, and if you want to come work in the Department of Finance and Administration, that would be great, and help keep those departments of public works people right in line.
Help as much as you.
Excellent.
I actually had, thank you for the presentation. I have 3 questions for you. One had to do with the business personal property tax. I know that was initiated a number of years ago. I'm wondering if there's been any considerations to roll that back. I can't even remember why it was initially done back in 2018, but that might be one place to look at rolling back. The other thing I'm wondering about is going back to the 80s when Bernie was mayor, and we had similar property tax problems as a result, especially of a reappraisal that had been delayed for too many years. We adjusted commercial property taxes at 120% rate of residential. And I think that might be something to look at this point, especially since during reappraisal, which was done just after the pandemic, when commercial properties were at the lowest rate because of all the vacancies and the business fallback in business, and residences were at the highest rate because of all the out-of-state folks who were driving up real estate values. So rebalancing those two through looking at that kind of tax classification might be one thing to look at. And then the third question was whether you're looking at things like the gross receipts tax and potentially raising that. That was one of the things that we looked at back in the 80s when we were trying to find alternatives to the property tax for municipal services. So.
Great questions. To my knowledge, we have not looked at rolling back the business personal property tax. That could be interesting. It has, my understanding, because I was not here when that was rolled back, is that was done at after a long consideration because the tax was considered to be inequitable and because we may be the only municipality that still had that. So worth looking at, but I'm not sure we would get a lot of traction. I love the idea of adjusting the commercial rate, wrote it down, gonna follow up on that. I hope no one in here is owning a business. Just kidding, I'm sure someone does. And the gross receipts tax is something we are currently discussing. 2 years ago, we increased the gross receipts tax on the lodging from 2% to 4%. At that same time, we increased all the non-lodging gross receipts from 2% to 2.5%. That is supposed to roll back from 2.5% to 2.2% again as of July 1st. It is the mayor's preference and her plan to keep that at 2.5%. If it were to roll back, as some members of the city council would like to do, that would create another $1 million hole. So that's sort of where we are with gross receipts. And I'm happy to keep answering questions. I don't want to take away from Kelly's time.
I've got a question.
Sure.
Actually, somewhat of a comment. This is the second year that it's been over budget. Is that correct? Like it's by 10, third.
It is not, to be clear, we are not over budget. This is a normal thing and it's not the third year. This has happened every year. I've been here for 6 years. We just talked about it in a different way under the previous administration. But at this point in the budgeting process, we have a gap before we get there. And yes, you are right to point out it has happened for many years. I'm just trying to be precise. So sorry, keep going.
Yeah, I just want to clarify the wording because just so we're all understanding, when we say budget gap, it is that we've set a budget for a year and we're not able to hit that budget. We're overspending that budget that was established.
No.
No.
I'm really glad you asked because I'm going to report out at next week's Board of Finance. So right now we're in 3 budget years. It's really confusing. I'm going to report out on FY25, which ended in June 30th of last year. And we had a really good year. We, in fact, came in under budget. I'll save all the rest of that good news. We are currently in FY26, we're chugging along fine. We're talking about FY27. So what we're talking about is a theoretical budget gap for next year. We're saying we think we're going to need $107 million as of July 1st. And as of right now, Catherine Schad can only think of $97 million. We still have until July 1st to think of the $10 million. So nothing has been overspent. We have never overspent. We don't have a deficit. We have a projected gap. Like if you are doing your budgeting at the end of the calendar year and you're like, okay, I've added up all of my expenses and that's going to be $50,000 for all of 2026. I know that my salary is $45,000. You don't need all $50,000 on January 1st. You need it for the whole year. So you've got to get it at some point. You need that plan. Like that's planning that we're at right now.
Okay, that's helpful. And so I guess maybe just for further discussions, maybe that would be helpful to explain a little bit better because it's difficult to understand exactly what is happening. And then just for future years, what can we do to prevent that from happening again is really important. And making a strong effort to address that in the future.
Okay, I do want to make sure we have enough time for our next presentation. So I think we're going to go ahead and move on. But Dr. Perkins, go ahead.
Oh, great. Thank you all so much. It feels really special to be doing this presentation here with you all tonight, or one in the Friends Meeting House, given the history, of the Quakers' fight for racial, gender, social, economic equality. And so thanks so much for having me. I will be brief, okay? Again, my name is Kelly Perkins. I currently serve the city of Burlington as the director of the Office of Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging. And here tonight to talk to you about what the proposed charter change is, what you're being asked to decide as voters. Familiarizing folks with what REIB does. I don't take for granted that everyone knows the ways in which we are serving the city currently, and thinking about what the implications are of this change for Burlington. Next slide, please. And so on March 3rd, you're being asked to decide whether or not the Office of Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging should be added to the city's charter. As we know, our charter is our foundational document that outlines our organization of our city government powers, functions, and including defining which parts of our city government are permanent. And so while equity inclusion efforts have been a pretty long-standing part of the work of the city of Burlington, documented back to the early 2000s, incorporating this REIB in the city's charter makes these efforts a permanent part of the city's government infrastructure. And so to inform your decision, I'll briefly explain REIB's work to date and its significance in our city government so far. Next slide, please. Just to center us all, so we're having the same conversation, diversity, equity, inclusion are practical tools for evaluating how well our systems work. They help us to look at how city services, policies, and our workplace are designed, who they reach, and whether or not they work effectively for the people who rely on them. This is about systems and outcomes, not individual beliefs. As you all know, Burlington is the second most diverse city in our state, with residents of different languages, abilities, ages, incomes, lived experiences, and recognizing our diversity as a city helps us to understand that we can't have a one-size-fits-all approach. That just is not going to work, right? Equity means recognizing that people start from different places, and that fair access sometimes requires different approaches, such as accessible buildings, captioned videos. This meeting tonight is a hybrid meeting, right, for those purposes. These are practical design choices, right, not ideological ones. Inclusion focuses on whether people feel welcomed, informed, and are able to fully participate in our city and in their city government. When we apply the DEI lens to city systems, they work better and serve the whole community more effectively. Next slide, please. And so what does the REIB do and why does it matter for Burlington? So some examples of how REIB works across the city government currently and with stakeholders to ensure that city services are effective, fair, accessible, and informed by the needs of the residents of Burlington, include one, supporting city departments and developments, coordination and implementation of programs and services to ensure consistency and accessibility. We also provide training, education, and guidance for city staff, boards and commissions, community stakeholders, and work collaboratively with the Burlington School District. We also create structured and informal ways for community members to engage directly with city government via our Trusted Community Voices program. That program represents 7 of our city's immigrant and refugee communities, bringing lived experience and community insights to inform projects, policies, and programs. We also host community conversations on topics impacting our community, such as partnering with the Special Assistant to End Homelessness to engage community members in this important discussion. We also have monthly REIB City Council Committee meetings where constituents have an opportunity to engage with city councilors and REIB staff around DEI issues in our community that are important to them. And so why does this matter? One, it helps the city and the community respond to diverse and community identified needs, right? We're looking to have inclusive government. Again, Burlington is one of the most diverse cities in our great state of Vermont. And as such, we have a responsibility to prioritize work that fosters inclusivity by reflecting the diverse identities, experiences, and needs of all community members. DEI supports a strong local economy, right? If you keep doing the same thing, you keep getting the same results. And so this is an opportunity to strengthen economic opportunities. Studies show that diverse and inclusive environments contribute to innovation, creativity, and productivity, enhancing overall economic vitality of the city, creating job growth, and attracting new businesses. It also brings diverse perspectives into city decision-making and helps to build trust. We work to enhance community well-being and community resilience by addressing systemic barriers and fostering an inclusive environment. We create a strong social fabric that promotes trust, collaboration, and belonging. This approach not only benefits individuals from diverse racial and ethnic backgrounds, but also enhances quality of life for the entire community, leading to a more engaged, resilient, and thriving city where everyone can fully participate and feel valued. Right now, that looks like the work of REIB. Just in the time since I have been director, we are really expanding our depth and breadth of our work, working to revitalize the Aging Council, for instance, because we know that we need to take better care of our aging residents in this city. And we also need to ensure that the range of folks, again, who are aging, income levels, racial and ethnic diversity, that we're taking care of everyone. Last slide, please. And so I want to provide just a little bit of clarity because we just talked about the budget. REIB already exists. And again, this work is not new for Burlington. It is just currently operationalized as REIB. And so this has been a worthwhile expense for Burlington. For instance, language access and making sure that things are translated, again, so that the fullness of our residents can participate in government. We're trying to expand that program. One thing that's missing is that we know that language is not just the written word, right? We do have people in our community who need Braille, which we don't have on our city signs in most of our buildings. We could get more creative and do more work around working with people who are hearing impaired. And so this vote asks whether the work of the Office of Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging should be a permanent core function of city government. REIB really provides, particularly in times like this, when we have some budget difficulties, coordination, expertise, and continuity, right? So that we can ensure that whatever changes need to come about, whether raising revenue, cutting services, are not overly impacting any one part of our community. So we're not making decisions about staffing or funding for this department. The charter change does call for essentially a director. And so we are, like every other department, looking to figure out what it means to right size and to have a budget that is reflective of the needs of residents. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think we have time for a couple of questions.
Dr. Perkins, thank you for your work, particularly in these times. And I guess that's a question I would have around if the current administration has its way, our work with REIB would be gone. Does anything shifting it to an ordinance that it becomes part of the charter, does that strengthen its existence? Does that strengthen our work?
I would say the easy answer for that to me is yes. I think that adding this work to the charter allows it really to continue on in perpetuity, right? I think particularly with the way that DEI has been weaponized in our current administration, really because DEI hasn't been professionalized, it's been very bastardized really over the course really of the last 6 years or so since COVID. We know that this work has been around for so long, right? I mean, I've been an educator by training and trade, and I can remember having an Office of Multicultural Affairs in my elementary school. I am much older than I look. And so I think that this is our commitment to saying, yes, we've been doing this work, but we want to make sure that regardless of who is in office, whether federally or locally, that we continue to prioritize ensuring that our services, and our city government is for the people in totality.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sharon, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak in support of this item because I think that our charter reflects what's important to us as a community. And the departments that are listed there are the core departments that are consistent with our mission. And our mission in Burlington has been, since I came here to go to school at UVM. I'm one of those awful UVM students that came but stayed. But our mission has always been inclusion, trying to figure out how we can embrace new people into our community. And so to me, it's really important to have this department part of our charter so that, as Kelly said, that this is permanent and not dependent on administration's priorities. It is a priority of our community as an entire body of people. And so I certainly hope that people will look at this and consider it. And I never tell people how to vote, but I'm going to tell you how I'm going to vote. I'm going to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Does anyone else have any questions? Not seeing any, but go ahead.
Kelly, I'm just wondering if there are other towns that have positions like yours where you can unite together and feed off each other. What's out there?
Oh, yeah, that's such a great question. So the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission actually has just as a month ago convened a municipal equity group. And so we actually, I think I have a meeting next week for this month, but it includes Burlington, South Burlington, Heinsberg, Essex Junction, and Winooski right now. I do think it will, I think somebody from Milton attends. And so all of these folks have some sort of position. A couple of them are HR professionals who have been tasked with equity and inclusion as part of their responsibilities, but the rest are folks who have similar positions to me in those municipalities.
Almost state office.
Yeah, and we do obviously, yes, we have a state office of racial equity.
Right. Well, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate you being here. Next up, we have our Overdose Prevention Center listening session. And I'm not sure exactly who's coming up for this.
Hi. Sorry, I was trying to get my notes to work on my computer, but I'm going to go from my phone. So, good evening, everybody. This is, I think, our third time joining you all here in Ward 1. I'm Teresa Vazina. I am the special assistant at the mayor's office on the implementation of the Overdose Prevention Center. And I am here with my colleague, Jess Kirby from Vermonters for Criminal Justice Reform, who is our partner in this project. So tonight, we are actually here to give you a quick update on the Overdose Prevention Center, where we're at, quickly go through some preliminary data results from the surveys that we've recently done. But the primary goal tonight is a listening session. So we really want to hear what do you all have to say? What are your thoughts? What are your ideas? Like, it's really important to us. So I want to make sure, I know that we have a little less time than we thought we'd have. So I'll try not to talk too much at you and kind of move through the information as quickly as I can. I think, I wondered if everybody here was familiar with the Overdose Prevention Center and just wanted to make sure that we just gave a little bit of a kind of like, what is the Overdose Prevention Center? And the OPC that we are launching here in Burlington is a part of Act 178. And it will provide a safe, supervised space for people who use drugs, and also connect them to really vital services, as well as hopefully reducing harm and public use and improperly disposed of syringes, like all the things that we really recognize as things that are problematic for the community, quite honestly. The Overdose Prevention Center is not just for people who will use the service, it's actually a community health project. And so we really are looking to learn more about how you feel this project will better our community, will better Burlington. Right now, we are in the early planning and implementation phases of the project. And we've been working with VCJR for about a year now. We are fully into our service assessment report, and that's kind of why we're here. We did a couple of different surveys with PIRE, that's the Pacific Institute for Research and Education, and we have Vanessa Berman here, who will actually be documenting our evening tonight, and it will become part of our service assessment. And so just wanted to let you know that that would be happening. We have, I think, about 25 minutes together. So we'll start off, maybe the next slide would be great. I want you to be able to see the questions. Yes. So I am gonna go through a little bit of the preliminary results, but it's also available to you on Civic Clerk. So I want to make sure we get to hear from you. So I might whiz through those slides pretty quickly so that we can get to the listening part of tonight. And these are the three questions that we're really hoping to gather more information about. The first one is, what positive impacts do you hope the OPC will bring to our community? The second is, do you have any questions or concerns about the OPC? And then how would you like to see us continue to engage with you throughout this process, not only before the OPC opens, but after it's open and while it's operating? So those are the three things we're going to focus on this evening. I know that for ground rules, I know you guys have your own ground rules, but I just want to make sure that we recognize this is to be hopefully a welcoming and inclusive space, and that we give everybody an opportunity to talk, and also that we assume best intention as we're moving through this process this evening. I also recognize that maybe not everybody feels comfortable speaking, in a space like this. And so we want to make sure that you can also, you can submit written comments or thoughts as well. Okay. And I think we could move to the next slide, please. Thanks. So the service assessment, as I've already said, we're working with PIRE on, and it really is designed to help us to better inform how we implement the project. So far, we have interviewed 49 people with living experience. And so PWLE, you'll see that a lot in the slides, means people with living experience. Those are people who are currently using drugs. And we did that in partnership with VCJR and Howard Center Safe Recovery. And then we also had the community survey, which I hope many of you participated in. We had a little over 1,500 responses to that community survey. It was anonymous and done digitally. And then, of course, we're going to continue to track ongoing community engagement efforts. So we can move on to the next slide. This kind of just is a little bit of a summary of who completed the surveys, both for people who living experience and also from our community survey. So we can move to the next slide, because I'm going to zip through these very quickly so I can leave time to talk. I think this is really kind of a cool slide. This comes from the people with living experience who did the survey, and this is them telling us, where do they most commonly use drugs? And so these are some of those percentages. We can move through to the next slide. Utilization and perception of the OPC. I really love, of the 49 respondents, 92 of those folks consider that they would use the Overdose Prevention Center. This is a service that they, would like to take part in. And 73% of those people said they would always use it, or most of the time would use it. And then from the community survey, on a scale of 1 to 10, do you think the OPC would be helpful? The most selected answer was 10, that yes, our community of 1,500 people said that yes, we do think this will be helpful in Burlington. And the median answer was 7, and the average was 6.3. Next slide, please. This is a little bit about location, and I know that location has been a question that a lot of folks have had. So you'll see here on the left, we have what did folks from the people with living experience, say that where would they like to see the site be located? Downtown Burlington was the most selected response for both the people with lived experience and the community survey. And then really close second and third were the Old North End and the Riverside Intervale area for both groups of people. When we asked the communities in the community survey, what factors would, in considering for the vicinity of the OPC were most important to you? Accessibility for potential clients was really high, 52%, so that was the most important thing to them. And then followed by proximity to schools and playgrounds and other support services, and then access to transportation. Next slide, please. And then this is from the people with lived experience, and would they be willing to travel? How far would they be willing to travel to the OPC? And so we can kind of see 60% is the highest, 5 to 15 minutes. But also they would be really a high percentage, 68% of people would take a free shuttle. And I'll just put a plug, I was in Ontario, Thunder Bay, Ontario a couple of weeks ago, and they have a care bus program, which is a free bus for people. And anyway, it's really cool. People do use it. 75% of people would be very likely to use a mobile van. I was actually quite surprised to see this number. And I think that's something we really need to dig into. Next slide, please. Security and safety at the OPC. We know that our community survey clearly said we want to make sure we have systems in place, policies in place, that we're working with law enforcement and EMS to ensure that we have safety and security at the site, both inside and outside. I really, really loved seeing this data point. The people who will use this site predominantly said that they really also want to be safe. They also want security inside. They also want security outside. They would feel more safe with security as well. And I think there's often sometimes a misconception that maybe people wouldn't have wanted security, but they actually did. So I wanted to make sure that we highlighted that a bit as well. Next slide, please. These are some of the things that from the community survey of the 1,500 people, what were some of the positive impacts they thought that they would like to see out of this project? And the number one was preventing overdoses and saving lives. And that really is what this project is about, right? And then you can kind of see that, it kind of continues down, and I won't go through each one because I know you'll be able to look at it a little later on. And next slide, please. And then services and support. These were really similar actually with the people who use drugs. What were the services that were most important to them compared to the community survey respondents? They were a little differently ranked. And I think that when we look at bathrooms and showers, that's something that people who use drugs, that was a little higher up, right, than with the community survey, because that's a service they really need. That's something they genuinely really need for their basic human needs. But referrals to drug treatment, medical care, I love seeing STI testing so high with people who are, living with drug use. And So anyway, just thought it was a neat comparison to see these. Next slide, please. A sexually transmitted infections. Ongoing community conversations. This really is so that we can better know how to communicate with you all. What is the ways that people want the city and VCJR to continue to engage with you? And so these are just some of those numbers. And we'll talk more about that in our questions. Next slide, please. And these are just some of our next steps that we'll be taking for the project. We've been doing NPA meetings, as some of you know, for a very long time. We will continue to do these. We will be doing some focus groups, which we've been scheduling with PIRE, with law enforcement and EMS, service providers, medical providers. And we're doing a listening session at every NPA for the city. As well as continuing to do interviews with people who are currently using drugs at VCJR. The findings report, the final report, should be available to us in April. And after that, we will do a larger community forum to share those results and have another larger community conversation. If you are looking to kind of see a little bit more about the progress that we've had over the last year, if you go to the city website, there's an annual progress report page, and you can kind of see the timeline of the work that we've done to date. And we are hiring an OPC project manager to help with grant management and grant compliance and those types of things. So that's my spiel. I hope I got through that pretty quickly for you all. And again, if you want to dig deeper into this, this will be available to you on Civic Clerk. All right, next slide, please. Oh, there is no next slide. That's it. So the next thing is on my phone, and that is really just to say that we want to now move into talking to you all.
Can I have one thing to
Sure. Yeah.
Jess. Hi, everybody. I'm Jess from VCJR. I'm a person with lived experience with the opioid use disorder also, and from this area. I just wanted to say, pointing out, and when I saw these results, one of the things that stood out to me the most was, when people were asked about places that they have used drugs in Burlington, they're being asked about things like by the waterfront, by, at City Hall Park, places that we're all frequenting and that we hear about. And then when they also are asked a question about would they use the OPC, over 92% said they would, and over 70% said that they would use it all of the time or most of the time. So that right there tells us the likelihood that this, how likely it is that this site would reduce public drug use. If people are saying that they use in all these places, and they're also saying that they would use a site like this all or most of the time, that means that that's going to be a lot less public use in the community. And I think having those results, to hear that from the people, that are out here in our community and are struggling with this, I just think is really impactful and tells us a lot. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that because I think it's a really important point to think about.
Thank you, Jess. And I think the other thing I kind of skimmed over is that 84% of the respondents, people with living experience, were also experiencing houselessness or were currently unsheltered. So I think now we can sort of launch in, and I'll be honest, I've never conducted a listening session before. So we have the 3 questions. If maybe we could go back to the slide with the 3 questions that we'll be asking. Do you all have microphones, or how do you all? Okay, awesome. If we could kind of start with that first question and just allow people to, speak. Vanessa will be kind of tracking. Yes, sir, here.
Hi. Someone have a mic I can borrow? Exactly. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Kevin Bloom. At the beginning, I introduced myself as a candidate for Sheriff of Chittenden County. I'm also a musician and my studio is in City Hall Park. I just wanted to comment and say that I 100% support the work that you're doing. I think it's awesome. I've been advocating for this for years. It wasn't the last album that I made, but 2 albums ago, I stopped counting after 12 for the number of people overdosing in front of my studio. I started my work at the studio just to make music. I didn't think I would get good at administering Narcan. And it completely broke my heart that this service wasn't available. And I just want to applaud this work and this listening session and everyone here today. And I can't wait to support your work in the future.
Thank you. Thank you. I just realized you can respond to all 3 questions at the same time if you want to as well.
Always have a hard time articulating my question. So my question is that I remember having a conversation a few years ago. Have you looked at the long-term impact that this would have, particularly on the neighborhood? Or what could some problems that could arise once this is in place that you foresee arising because you look and see, and then how would you respond to those problems? Do you understand my question?
I do. I appreciate the question. I want to be really mindful that we probably won't do deep responses so that we leave time for the listening part. And I will say that we are doing with Pyre actually a neighborhood impact study after the OPC opens. And I think that will really shed a lot of light on how things are either, what are the positive impacts, but also what are some of the things that we're seeing that might be problematic. And I don't think we know in Burlington what those things might be, but we know that there is no project that could probably not have some things. And we'll work really closely with our community partners, especially with law enforcement and EMS providers and our mutual community service providers to strategize together. And I think we have a really great system in place actually for that here in Burlington. So it is on our radar.
My name is Kathy Owell, and I worked for 30 years in Burlington in youth center and with middle and high school kids, middle school and high school age kids. And I applaud this as well, because I can remember in the beginning years of opening the youth center, we had a real problem with drugs, and we were it. And so I know how much this is needed here, and I applaud that you're doing it. And I just hope to God the rest of this city wakes up and understands how important it is for kids and adults.
Thank you. This woman over here has had her hand up. Yes.
Hi, my name is Sharon Busher, and
You have a conference room named after you, don't you?
I'm sorry, what?
The conference room.
Yes,
here,
yes,
Butcher. I know
yes.
some meetings there.
Yes, I'm still alive. Often those rooms are named after someone who passed away, but I'm still alive, yes. So I support this, but I'm concerned, okay? I'm concerned because I feel that one aspect is that the thought is that a visible problem will now be less visible. But for me, I'm struggling with the fact that we have people who have an addiction, and the educational, and they have to want to try to change, try to get help for their addiction. So this provides them a safe place. But I want to make sure that the resources are there for people so they can make a significant change if they desire to. And I'm hoping that there will be more that do come to that conclusion, because for me, it's the person and the society that is being blown apart by families and members dying and children being impacted. So I'm really worried about that aspect, and how are we will we dedicate enough resources to that component of this whole project? And so and I'm torn apart by this because I don't know if there will be a really good outcome because it's been going on for so long. So I don't know the answer, but those are my concerns.
Thank you for sharing. And I also wanted to say that if we want to go deeper into some of the responses, to make sure we allow time for the listening part for people, would love to set up one-on-ones with Jess or myself or anyone from the project so we can really go deeper into talking with you about your concerns. But Jess, yes, please.
I just wanted to say how I completely hear that. You know, we do know that people who utilize harm reduction SSPs are so much more likely to enter treatment than people who don't, you know, so that's one thing. I wouldn't be in treatment today if it wasn't for harm reduction, you know, and going to a syringe exchange. That's the only place I went. The OPC is likely to be like that too. The place who people are struggling the most are coming and who service providers are getting access to that they might not otherwise. And so we absolutely intend to be the people driving people to treatment, to doing the treatment intakes, to helping people meet with counselors, seeing medical providers, and doing all of those things. And that is just as equally important to us, totally, as you know, saving lives. And this is it's furthering saving lives, but as observing overdose. So absolutely hear your point, and that needs to be a really important component. Is, you know, we really believe in harm reduction and recovery and treatment altogether. And so, you know, having access and building trust, it's about relationships, and having access to this population allows us to be able to help move people through those things. So, yeah.
Yes.
My name is Lisa Lax, and I've worked as a mental health provider in this community for about 40 years. And I think, you know, I think one thing I would like to see, and I don't know that this is necessarily the project's responsibility, is for us to move away from viewing substance abuse and addiction as being a moral and individual person's failure. And it's really more of we have a social, large responsibility, community responsibility, national, international responsibility for how these individuals are now in a place of suffering. And I just don't think we're doing enough really in promoting that kind of a viewpoint. So that's something I'd like to see come out of this project.
Thank you for sharing that. I think, sir, did you have your hand up? Yes.
My comment was exactly the same as Sharon's, that with respect to your first question about positive impact, you know, that would be not to see as much public use, but that's a pretty selfish point of view from my point of view. And so are we actually helping people by having them go to this OPC? And I hear that that is a part of the agenda. I think that's crucial. If we're not doing that, then we're not addressing what Lisa just said as well.
Thank you. Sir in the back.
Thanks. I'm Johnson Chapel Sokol. This is a little dry, but for the ongoing communications, I think it's really important to set real goals and real expectations for the program, and report very regularly on outcomes and results, and have open, honest, current data presented to the community. I think it's only going to be good news, but it's something, you know, there should be realistic and achievable goals, and then metrics to show that we're getting there.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And we will have a lot of data.
Is there somebody else? I guess I did have one question that might be a concern. So you showed the slide that use was happening in a number of different kind of generic places. And then we have to make a selection of where the OPC would actually be located. How much that location is going to dictate or influence how many people actually can make it to the place. And so how is that being thought about?
I think that's a really complex question. I think you have to look at a lot of different factors, right? So the heat map, where are the most overdoses happening? Where are people currently using? Also, the real deal is, where is real estate available also? What is accessible with for people to get to? So maybe, if they said 5 to 15 minutes, it was that's how far people would be able to travel to get to a place. So I think we have to look at all of the different pieces of data to try to make the most logical decision. But I think at the end of the day, part of this does boil down to the available real estate, and also who is able to provide a property for this. And it's a big,
It's not a dime a dozen.
It occurs to me we have a number of unused properties that are located, and that this might be a beneficial use of one of those unused properties.
I appreciate that, and definitely, sir.
Hi, Eric Montka, 60 Grove Street. So my question or comment relates to, just follows up on the location issue. The other factor is zoning. I think I asked you guys this the last time. I'm a Burlington Planning Commissioner. We had introduced a zoning ordinance allowing the site within, can't remember, it was like over a year ago, within the downtown or at downtown adjacent area. It was pulled because we weren't far enough along as a city. It was introduced before the health department actually had put out their guidelines for the center. So I'm just wondering, two things. Has there been progress around real estate and location that you can share with us, and just the advice to not delay, because not to wait too long, let me put it that way, to come to the Planning Commission, because it takes a while to get the zoning approval. It has to go through our committee process, our commission process. It has to go through the city council. Wherever you want to be located is going to have some form of controversy, as I think you understand. So don't hold off too long, because I would hate to be in a position where you're ready to go and there is no approval for the zoning.
I so appreciate you highlighting that. And yes, I will say it is on our radar. And from within my role, I have been having lots of conversations and planning for that. I think just high level, just to say that throughout the last 9 months, there has been a lot of behind the scenes research being done on real estate, the market, what's available, what are property owners willing to do, not willing to do. There's a lot of that preparatory work that's been happening. And I talked with Charles Dillard pretty recently to make sure that I kind of knew what steps we'd need to take for the zoning footnote. So yes, those are very much on our radar, but thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah, back here. Just a few things. In response to a gentleman over there, in terms of being open and transparent in your results and so forth. Another item related to that might be, are there other, cities or towns of similar size where this has happened successfully, and being able to use that as a case study in sharing that sort of transparent information. And maybe there's some that are out there that were not successful, and you can explain what happened there and why is what we're doing different. I think that educating people will go a long way to getting people to support you. And so that's just a suggestion. And then just understanding, I guess, a little bit more about what exactly happens at this facility. Maybe you can explain a little bit, like, how many people do we have on staff? What types of spaces are we using inside? When someone comes in, what happens? When someone leaves, what happens? Is it expected to encourage people to come here from outside the city? I guess more information, the better, so that people are educated.
I appreciate all of those suggestions, and I think when we do the final report out in April, we'll be able to really dive a little deeper into those things. And Jess can also share that they've been working directly with Project Weber Renew in Rhode Island and Providence. It was a very successful program, very similar structure to what we have here in Vermont. And they are our technical assistance provider for the project. But there are hundreds of these around the world. That we also have that to go from, but we really wanted to focus in on here in the United States. And also Providence, while it's not as rural as here, it is much more rural than New York City, for instance.
Right.
So, but yes, I think that those other things we'll be able to really share more as the project unfolds. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, where are you seeing the most drug usage now, and does it shift by season?
For me to answer right now, I haven't. Season is hard to answer because it's just so dependent on what's going on with the supply. I would say summer, I know are busier months, there's a lot more people outside, so there's more overdoses happening outside and in public places in summer and in the warmer months. And I think in terms of heat map data, a lot of overdoses are really concentrated downtown, around City Hall Park area, over by Elmwood area, a lot around there, the waterfront. Can you think of other places? Yeah.
The heat maps are really, that is kind of the information. We are relying pretty heavily on the data that comes back from the health department.
Yeah.
For sure. So, yeah. Sir, did anybody else have their hand up that we've missed? Right.
I have one. What is if you did on a bus or something? You talked about a mobile unit, because I think finding a place where people don't go crazy is going to be really hard. And years ago, there used to be like bookmobiles, and honestly, they were really cool, like school bus size van things with books. I mean. So I don't know, you might end up having to start out with something like that. But is that, what are you thinking of when you said on one of your slides about that?
It was a question because the guidelines put out by the health department kind of allowed for either a fixed site or a mobile site. And we wanted to make sure that we were asking that question to people who might use a site. There's not many programs that actually do full mobile services, and that is because so many of the services are embedded. Low barrier treatment, medical, wound care, support groups, and it's showers, food. And so it's really hard to be able to have this really expansive program in a van. But I think digging into it and learning more and thinking about what does a hybrid model look like? Who knows? Maybe we create something that's new that is a model for other cities that are also doing this work. So I don't think we're going to leave any stone unturned. And I think when we do these further interviews with people who use drugs, asking them, this is all built on what do people who use drugs, what do people who use this service, what's going to work best for them? We must have their voices. There's a mantra, nothing about us without us. And there's a reason for that. Because if we involve those voices and we learn more about what they need, we can create a program that will be best utilized by folks. So I think that we don't know yet, but I think that data point was really, it said a lot. So
Yeah, we want to hear it. I mean, another challenge with mobile is how many people you can have in there at a time. So you have to think also if people are in withdrawal, they're needing to use and they come to where the mobile van is and there's already somebody inside, maybe one or two people at once. That person could take a while. That person could have a hard time after. That person could have an overdose that requires time and staff and all that. And so people maybe lined up outside or something may not stay. At a fixed site, people can be inside having snacks, taking a shower, getting other services, working with providers, that kind of thing. So, but I do think Teresa's right that, definitely with that data point, it's something to explore. And especially in a rural state, people have had questions about that because Burlington, has a lot more people in a concentrated area, but the rest of Vermont isn't like Burlington. And so it's definitely something to be looking at and thinking about how could this work. So.
Did they ever find a place for the meals, the lunches that they were serving to people at noon? It moved to City Hall Park. They have a place now?
Yeah, at the City Hall Park.
Okay,
Yes,
so
that was.
say maybe you could partner with them and find a location for both.
I just want to speak in support of this project because I had the experience of working at the Fletcher Free Library for a summer as the security guard on site, and it put a lot of strain on the whole library staff when people would use the facility to use, and having an alternate space for people to use will, I think, allow the community to really feel safe and use the library in a healthier way, and I think it'll be really good to have an alternative space for use.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Sharon?
Yeah. One last thing, Sharon Busher again. I was on the city council, and when they put forward a methadone clinic at UHC, and I was part of that group that listened to users and the recovery system, and it was at UHC, I represented this ward, Ward 1, and people were really concerned. But what I wanted to say about that site was that there's a parking area surrounding it. So people were worried about people hanging around, and they addressed that in a different way than some of the current users. The needle exchange program that Howard is closing because of the neighborhood, etc. I wish that there was a site that wasn't. I'm not trying to shield it, but I'm trying to buffer it from the neighborhood wherever it resides, so that there can be a little buffer so that the neighbors feel they have privacy and the clients feel like they have privacy too. Just like you said, they wanted security. I don't know, I've been racking, because I don't know where you're going to go. I've been trying to think of sites and I don't have any to offer, but I know that protection made a difference. That buffer made a difference. And I anticipate that, as someone said, it's wonderful you're coming now, but when it opens and there's a problem, that's when people want to see you. They want to see you. They want to know that you're going to respond to their concerns. Yeah. And so I would like to try to find something that would try to reduce the number of incidents that we will all face, trying to make this positive step work. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. And just one thing I want to share is that the Board of Health, the Burlington Board of Health, will be the entity that will help us to field concerns coming from the community. We wanted to make sure there was, I think, Allie, you were part of that, adding that to our proposal to make sure that we had an entity here at the city that could help us to deal with things, because let's be real, there's always going to be something, that's just life. And so we're really excited to be able to work alongside the Board of Health with those things. And I think that's the other question, like, what would you like to see for ongoing communication as the OPC opens? We want to make sure that there are ways for residents and for community members and for participants even to share how things are going and what is or isn't working, so we can strategize together. Yeah, thank you.
just wanted to dovetail on, I can't, yeah, you're behind the pillar there. The comment about the library, just there are other entities around that provide social services that have had to close their bathrooms because people are ODing. And I think you all know this. I don't know if everybody's aware of this, but it's really going to help. I think a lot of public and semi-public spaces where people are currently resorting to, to injecting, to have this facility. And there's some bathrooms that people may be using downtown that will maybe be able to be open. And like the library, I think there'll be a somewhat different environment because people will, be able to go to the Overdose Prevention Center. I do have one follow-up question, which is, have you guys, there's so much terrible, horrendous policy coming from the Trump administration around this specifically. Has to do, with Trump's executive order last summer, which focused around homelessness and also around substance use. And I'm just wondering if you guys have been engaged in conversations around what it's going to mean for federal funding and for during the current administration and for the city generally to have an overdose prevention site. I know that the Chittenden County Homeless Alliance has already changed their grants administrator from the city because of that to the United Way. So just wondering if you've thought through some of the other repercussions.
We had an executive session actually before the contracts were approved, and have been working really closely with city attorney and also with our TA partners, and really watching closely what's happening at some of the other sites here in the US. But yes, we are definitely have our finger on the pulse of that. And I had early on asked Jess and Tom at VCJR, about their own federal funding, right? And that won't impact them currently. But I think that we do have to still be mindful and keep track of things. And so, yes, we are aware.
All right, I think we are solidly out of time now. But thank you guys so much for coming.
Thank you so much, everybody, for having us. We appreciate it.